If you don't listen to this story until the very end, you might miss a truth that could stay hidden from you forever. This is the story of a quiet man the world ignored, but destiny never did. A woodcutter, a rich girl, and a secret that was about to change everything. And remember, sometimes the quietest people end up writing the biggest stories. This happened long ago in a city where life moved slowly, but decisions had the power to change a person's entire future. On the edge of that city, where the forest began and the crowded streets came to an end, lived a woodcutter. A man who survived by cutting wood with his own hands, lived through hard work, and hid countless emotions behind his silence. That man's name was Hamza. Hamza used to wake up every morning before the light had fully spread across the sky. He would quietly get up, perform ablution, offer 2 units of prayer, and bowing his head, he would simply say, "Ya Allah, do not let my hard work become a source of humiliation today." Then he would pick up his old axe. He would place it on his shoulder and head toward the forest. In his home, there was no wealth, no support, only one habit: to be a burden on himself, but never on anyone else. In the forest, Hamza would cut wood for hours. His hands would get wounded, sweat would sting his eyes, and sometimes even blood would appear. Yet no complaint ever came from his tongue. He knew that the greatest flaw of poverty is making noise about it. That's why he stayed silent, and there was a strange kind of dignity in his silence. After selling the wood, Hamza would pass through the city market every day. Someone would lower the price, someone would avoid eye contact, and someone would look at him yet pretend he didn't exist. But Hamza never argued with anyone. He believed that sustenance is not decided by the market, but by Allah. And on this same path, there was always a turning point where his life was slowly going to change. In the very center of that city stood a large house, high walls, heavy doors, and a window opening toward the city. Often, a girl would stand by that window, the beloved daughter of a wealthy father. Her name was Ayesha. She had everything people pray for: honor, comfort, and a secure life. Yet still, she would stand by the window. Below, she watched the passing people, their busyness, their exhaustion. And within herself, a question would rise. How can someone be so alone in such a crowd? Her mother understood all of this, but for her father and brother, Ayesha was only a princess whose life had already been decided. One day, after selling his wood, Hamza passed in front of that same house. His gaze, as always, was fixed on the ground. He did not see Ayesha, and perhaps that was exactly why Ayesha felt him. For the first time, she realized that someone could respect her without even looking at her. There was no smile, no gesture, no words, just a moment that remained as silence in both their hearts. Ayesha's older brother was watching all of this from a distance. The same woodcutter every day, the same time, the same path. For him, it was not just a coincidence. He thought to himself that being poor and being silent, this combination is often dangerous. That night, Hamza returned home exhausted. His hands were in pain, but his heart was at peace. He placed the axe aside and sat on the ground, saying, "Ya Allah, whatever you have written for me, make me worthy of it." He had no idea that now his life would no longer be only about hard work. People were about to become part of it too. The next morning, Hamza woke up at the same time again, walked the same path, and passed in front of that same house. The window was the same, the road was the same. But this time, someone had felt him, and someone had noticed him. Yet Hamza had no idea about it. The next morning was the same as always: ablution, prayer, axe on the shoulder. But this time, his heart felt even more silent than before. In the forest, he was cutting wood, but today the axe moved more slowly than usual. His mind kept wandering again and again, and he felt frustrated with himself. He kept telling himself, "What difference does it make? I just do my work." But his heart did not agree. For the first time, Hamza realized that even silence can sometimes make noise. In the market, people again reduced the price. No one paid the full value. But today, it didn't feel the same as before. It felt like something else was hidden behind people's words. And when he came onto that same road, In front of that same house, he lowered his gaze even more. Ayesha was at the window again today, but this time she was not just watching, she was waiting. Yet even she did not understand what she was waiting for. Hamza passed by, eyes lowered, steps fast, and Ayesha's heart suddenly started beating faster for no reason. Questions began rising in her mind. Why doesn't he look? When everyone else does, why doesn't he? For the first time, Ayesha found herself standing in the middle of questions. Ayesha's mother saw her stepping away from the window. There was a nervousness in her eyes that said everything without words. The mother didn't ask anything. She just said, "The wind is strong today, you might catch a cold." Ayesha nodded, but her attention was somewhere else. Her older brother was watching all of this, the sister standing at the window, the same woodcutter passing below at the same time every day. Now it was no longer just a suspicion. He told his father, "Have you noticed? The same man every day, at the same time, on the same path." The father didn't say anything, but his silence felt like a yes. In the same city, there was also Zaid, well-dressed, sharp-tongued, and used to understanding people. He had liked Ayesha for a long time, and he had also noticed that the house atmosphere was slowly becoming stricter. Zaid started sitting with the brother and talking to the father. He never said anything directly. He only said, "These days are not good. You have to keep an eye on everything." This seemed reasonable to both the father and the brother. That night, when Hamza returned home, his mother asked, "You look worried today." Hamza shook his head and said, "No, mother, just tired." He lied, or maybe he simply didn't know how to speak the truth. That night he stayed awake for a long time. He couldn't sleep at all, and when he closed his eyes, only one prayer came to his lips. "Ya Allah, keep my heart under my control." Ayesha also stayed awake late that night. In her mind, there was no image of Hamza's face, only his silence. Sometimes she would think, if he spoke, if he just looked at me once. Then she would stop herself, telling her heart that even thinking like this is not right. She prayed, "Ya Allah, remove from my heart what is not meant for me." The next morning, Hamza woke up again, went to the forest, then came to the city. Ayesha came to the window again, and at that very moment Zaid was standing below with her older brother. The brother's eyes were on Hamza, while Zaid's eyes were on the entire scene. Hamza passed by, unaware, while some people had already started thinking about him. Ayesha closed the window. Her brother left his sentence unfinished, and Zaid stopped smiling. Hamza adjusted his axe and walked back home. He still had no idea that his silence no longer belonged only to him. Evening slowly settled inside the house. Lamps were lit, but the room still felt unusually dim. Ayesha's father was sitting on the floor, his face hard and his gaze fixed. In front of him were house papers and people's words. The older brother stood close by, his voice carrying less anger and more fear. He said, "This situation can't continue. People are starting to talk." The father didn't ask any questions. He simply said, "From tomorrow, the window will remain closed." Ayesha was standing behind the curtain. Hearing this, she froze in place. She didn't say anything, no protest, no question. But for the first time, she felt her breath become heavy inside her own home. She went to her mother, sat down with her head lowered, and softly asked, "Ammi, am I doing something wrong?" Her mother lifted her face and looked at her for a long time. Then she said, "You are not doing anything wrong, but you are feeling something, and that is what scares people." That night, the mother didn't just pray. She complained to Allah for the first time. She said, "Ya Allah, do not punish my daughter with this pain that she never even asked for." Ayesha lay down beside her mother, but neither of them could sleep. On the other side, Hamza returned from the forest in the evening. He placed his axe aside, drank water, and sat in silence. His mother asked, "Did something feel different in the market today?" Hamza shook his head and said, "Everything was the same." And he was telling the truth because he didn't know that some changes don't happen in markets, they happen inside homes. Meanwhile, Zaid saw the right moment and approached the father. He sat beside him and quietly said that he didn't want to exaggerate anything, but these days every father needs to be a little strict. The father nodded, and the brother felt as if someone had spoken what was in his heart before he could even say it. The next morning, the window was closed. For the first time, Ayesha felt trapped inside her own home. She could no longer look down, but she knew Hamza would pass by at that same time, and that thought alone was enough for her. When Hamza passed in front of that house that day, he saw the window closed for the first time. He did not stop, he did not look up, but his steps lost their rhythm. He said to himself, "Maybe it's going to rain," and kept walking. In the evening, the brother told the father that they should start looking for a proposal. The father immediately asked, "Is there someone in mind?" The brother said, Ayaz. Ayaz, a well-known name in the city. Educated, simple, and from a good family. The father liked the name, and the brother did too. Only the mother remained silent. When Ayesha heard Ayaz's name, she didn't say anything, but for the first time, tears stayed in her eyes. She told her mother, "I am not saying anything wrong about anyone, but my heart is stuck somewhere else." Her mother held her hand and said, "I know, that's why I am silent." That night, Hamza sat for a long time. There was a strange, unnecessary heaviness in his heart. He said to himself, "It is better to stay away from what is not mine," and he decided that now he would pass that road more quickly. The next morning, 3 different decisions had already been made. Hamza started walking faster. Ayesha did not gather the courage to open the window, and Zaid was sitting with the father. The name Ayaz was now being taken daily inside the house. That night, Ayesha said to her mother, "If this is Allah's decision, then give me strength." And Hamza said to his mother, "Mother, if I can find work away from the city for a few days, it would be better." 2 people had made separate decisions, but neither of them knew that these decisions were still not complete. Evening slowly settled inside the house again. The lamps had been lit, but the light in the room still felt dim, as if even the light knew that a major decision was about to be made that day. Ayesha's father was sitting on the floor. In front of him were papers, names of proposals, and people's opinions. He was silent, but his silence seemed to say, "I cannot be wrong. I am the father." Her older brother stood nearby. There was no anger on his face, only fear. The fear that if news spread in the city, how would they ever hold their heads high again? Ayesha was sitting behind the curtain. Her hands were shaking. For the first time in her life, she realized that silence can take away a lot from a person. She came forward. Her voice was soft, but her words were heavy. She said, "Abba, I am not being stubborn with you." A silence filled the room. Then she continued slowly, "I just want to say that if today you break my heart, I will learn to smile tomorrow. But that smile will not be the happiness of this house." She didn't cry while saying this, and that was what made it even heavier. Her mother stepped forward. Today she spoke not just as a mother, but as a woman. She said, "I have never seen my daughter act stubborn. She has hidden what she feels, and if even that is a sin, then we only give birth to daughters as burdens." The father lowered his gaze for the first time. Zaid stood silent. He had thought he would remain strong till the end, but when the father asked him why he was so involved in this matter, he stopped. Truth can be hidden, but not for long. He slowly said, "Because I want to marry Ayesha." Those words echoed in the room. The brother's face turned rigid. He said, "So, you weren't helping, you were building your own path." Zaid had nothing left to say. Ayaz was called. He came, sat down, and listened to everything. Then he lifted his head and said, "I don't want to build my home by becoming a burden on someone's heart. If I even win today, my future wife will lose her peace tomorrow." He looked at Ayesha and, for the first time, smiled with respect. He said, "Your silence is your testimony." Then he stood up and left, without complaint, without anger. On the other side, Hamza was standing alone at the edge of the city. He only had his axe and a decision. He said to himself, "I cannot attach the honor of someone's home to my name." He was about to leave when he was called back. Hamza returned home, head lowered, eyes fixed on the ground. The father asked, "Do you love my daughter?" Hamza took a deep breath and said, I know my status. That is why I never let my feelings come to my tongue. If even my silence is a sin, then I will leave." The room fell into complete silence. The brother stepped forward and said, "If you were bad, you would speak. And if you were wrong, you wouldn't be standing here." He looked at his father and said, "We were never afraid of poverty. We were afraid of disgrace. But disgrace comes from wrong decisions." The father closed his eyes. He remained silent for a long time. Then he said, "If my daughter's peace lies in this man's silence, how can I be a father who takes it away from her?" He looked at Hamza and said, "You are a woodcutter, but you have carried the weight of dignity better than me." The father signaled Hamza to sit. Hamza sat on the ground, head lowered, unable to lift his eyes. His mother was also in the room, his older brother as well, and behind the curtain, Ayesha. The father said softly, "I will not ask you whether you love my daughter or not. I will ask you this. If tomorrow you have nothing at all, can you still take responsibility for my daughter with dignity?" Hamza lifted his head slightly for the first time and said, "I may not have anything today, and perhaps not much tomorrow either, but whatever I will have will be halal, and I will never run away from responsibility." The room fell silent again. The brother stepped forward and looked at Hamza closely. He said, "Do you know why people doubted you? Because you never defended yourself." Hamza replied softly, "Those who are truthful do not need to defend themselves." The brother took a deep breath and said, "Maybe that is why you have come this far." The mother went near the curtain and said, "Daughter, now it is your turn to speak." Ayesha came out, head lowered. There was no fear in her eyes, only calmness. The father asked, "Are you ready to spend your life with this man?" Ayesha did not speak at length. She simply said, "The man who never tried to possess me. I can spend my life with him." She lowered her gaze again. The father looked at the mother, then at the brother, then at Hamza. He said, "I can give my daughter a wealthy home, but if I cannot give her peace, then that wealth is meaningless." He then said to Hamza, "Call the elders of the house tomorrow morning." Hamza's eyes filled with tears, and he lowered his head. The next morning, there was no noise in the house. Only those people were present who had come with respect. No drums, no display. Only words, responsibility, and prayers. When everything was settled, one word came to the lips: Nika. A few days later, Hamza was walking along the same road. This time, along with his axe, he also carried responsibility on his shoulders. The window was open, but Ayesha was not there. She was inside the house. She had stepped into her new life. Hamza lowered his gaze and moved forward. Some relationships are not built with noise. They are built with patience, dignity, and trust in Allah. If this story did not feel like just a story to you, but somewhere felt connected to your own life, then understand that this story does not end here. In such stories, there is no hero and no villain. Only patience, dignity, and trust in Allah exist. If you want more such true and meaningful stories to reach you, then join us on this journey. May Allah grant all of us patience and the ability to make the right decisions. Ameen.